This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators, people I've worked with, other interesting people about the history of comics, superheroes, and the current state of the comic book industry. I also discuss current and upcoming projects, current events, and any other topics my guests might be interested in talking about. So subscribe and hit the like button. Help me grow this channel and promote indie comic book creators, publishers, and other people affiliated with the comic book industry. Your comments are appreciated. Get to it and leave feedback, good, bad, and otherwise. I am your host, Dennis Mallonee, writer, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we spotlight good girls, bad girls, super babes, and superheroics in a classic, kind of golden agey style. Grab some snacks and enjoy. This is the Heroic Voice. This is June 3rd, 2024. This is our very first Heroic Voice. And our guest, as you can see over there, is Gordon Purcell, artist of Flair, Black Enchantress. First thing he did with Heroic Publishing was a Britannia story. We'll get to that. But what I want to do to start with, Gordon, is I want to talk about you. Okay, so the question is, how did you find out about comics? What made you interested in them? What led you to become an artist yourself?
Well, when I was young, I liked cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons, and I would buy comics that were about those cartoons, so Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner and stuff like that.
The old Dell comics, Gold Key.
Probably Gold Key, yeah. And my mom and my dad occasionally would buy me a comic, not very often, but a couple. And my mom decided to throw them all away.
Oh, mom.
Except I think the Batman and the Superman. There were two of them. And so I just turned to that. And I had a friend who had superhero comics, so I would read comics with him. And I was in a small town in Wisconsin, so we couldn't get every comic. They weren't always distributed great.
Oh yeah.
But as I got older, I had a car, and so I could drive to places that had comics. And I really liked them. I read books in the library about comic books and comic strips and stuff like that. And so I went to college trying to get a commercial art degree. And they didn't have one at the University of Minnesota, but they did have, advertising, studio arts. And what was the most helpful was theater, because you're kind of directing a script all the time, and you're choosing the costumes and the sets and directing where the actors are going to be and stuff. You cast the actors. So it actually helped me quite a lot. And in college, which was in Minneapolis, so it's a bigger city, I was able to start getting comics all I wanted. And they had something called the Marvel Tryout Contest.
Yeah,
which is a really big book. Yeah, and I did that, and I was a runner-up to Mark Bagley.
Oh yeah.
And my last year of college, I actually traveled to New York and went to the DC offices, which at that time were near Rockefeller Center.
Not the 575 Lexington address. That was
so,
my long time before that.
Yeah, so I met with Ernie Cologne, who liked my samples, but he said Batman has to be bigger. He's built like a brick S house. I do remember that pretty well. But he was really nice, and he put me in a new talent program, and that faded. And then there's another new talent program, and I got into that again. And so we learned some stuff in Chicago, where like Giordano and Kubert and Orlando, a lot of the people came and kind of taught classes for 2 days, which was great.
Was that a precursor to the Kubert School, or was that part of that?
I think it might have been before Kubert School. I don't know. Maybe they're about the same time.
Uh-huh.
So I was in that special art program, and of course that one faded. But somehow there was something called the DC bonus books, and they put a comic, a 16-page comic, in the middle of a comic, and mine was in flat.
Oh, yeah. That was like for a couple of months they did that. It's
Yes, and my friend Pete Krause did it, and there were other Rod Liefeld did it. There was a bunch of us that did it. Before that, I did try other comic places. I remember first comic I did a London Bar story, and I did a few. I think I helped with. I can't remember all of them. I remember doing Action Force, which was Lightning Comics. I did something for Rick Buckler.
what was the very first one that you did?
Uh, oh, that's I can remember that. Comics, Captain Paragon, and the Sentinels of Justice.
Which issue? So that collectors out there can grab it.
Can't remember. Two. My friend Greg Guler was drawing it, and he asked me to do layouts for him to get him on schedule again. So basically, that's what I did. I did layouts, and occasionally he would redraw something to be more Guler-like. And that was the first job. And because of that, Rich Buckler put me on a book called some sort of tryout book, and he said I was the professional. After one job, I was a professional.
Did you get paid for it?
I did, but it wasn't
And
very
you
much.
are a professional.
Yes, it was like $10 a page. It was very low. Where the Americomics paid, something more like $50 a page or something. And then, so I did a few of these independent comics. Then I got the DC job, and from DC job, I mostly worked at DC for a while. I think the next thing I did was a Spectre annual. I did a backup story, and then I did another Flash and Star Trek.
Hmm.
And Star Trek led to lots of Star Trek. So I ended up doing almost all the different crews except for Enterprise.
The last one of the original sequence.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But I did the first issue of Deep Space Nine, which I think was number 35 in sales that month. But back then,
That's
some
good.
books were selling in millions.
Yeah.
So I got huge. I paid a car off with it, my royalties. So I was always very thankful for that. After that, Marvel called, and my first job there was Wonder Man, and I'm thinking it's 11 or 12, probably 11. And from there, I did a bunch of other Marvel jobs, including What If Punisher had killed Spider-Man. I did an issue of Avengers. I did Mad Dog, a
Mad
miniseries.
Dog.
Yes.
Oh, there's an obscure character from out of the past.
Right. It was a show Bob Newhart was on.
Uh-huh.
So they were two versions. Ty Templeton drew kind of Bob Newhart's version, and I drew what that publisher wanted, which was much violent and everyone really muscular and all that.
That Newhart show, I remember that. It only lasted the one season.
Two.
2 seasons?
The second season, he moved to a greeting card company.
Oh, okay.
Like
So
Betty.
the Newhart show I remember then was only the one season.
That was
Didn't
the good.
didn't Dawes Butler appear on that show or one of the voice
I think they
actors from
had a lot of
Hanna-Barbera?
comic book people appear at one point. They went to like a comic convention or
Uh-huh.
party. It's been so long since I saw it. So I
I
don't.
think Dawes was a regular. I mean, they had one of the old Hanna-Barbera voice actors. I don't remember whether it was Dawes or God, what was the other guy's name? Uh, the one who did most of the voices.
I believe you though, because I hear Dawes Butler all the time because I have been watching Chili Willy cartoons, and he's
Hey, Gordon. I don't think Mr. Ranger's gonna like that.
yeah. Well, we don't get that channel yet. We can only hope it comes. Evidently, MeTV is going to go to all cartoons on one of its channels, so we'll see if we get that.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't seen Hanna-Barbera cartoons in maybe when I was growing up.
You can get them on DVD.
Yeah, well,
Complete Huckleberry Hound, Complete Yogi Bear. I don't know if Quick Draw is out there or not, but
I kind of
all
like to
those.
see
Which
Pixie
one did you
Dixie.
like best? My favorite was Quick Draw McGraw out of all of those
I like him
shows.
and El Kabong. And I
Yeah.
did like Huckleberry Hound. I like Secret Squirrel. I remember that. By the time they got to Scooby Doo, I probably saw the first year of that, second year maybe, and then I was probably finished watching
Yeah.
animated cartoons for a year.
Mark Evanier still loves Scooby Doo. I don't actually understand why.
Well, it was fun when I first saw it. I saw it up to when they started having movies with Sonny and Cher
Uh-huh.
and Batman and stuff,
The
and I
guest
liked them.
stars. Yeah.
But by then I was getting older, so I rather sleep in on Saturdays, I guess.
Oh, okay. What I don't remember how you were put in touch with me, Dennis Mallonee, the publisher of Heroic Publishing. Do you remember how that happened?
No, but I think you got in touch with me.
Oh, I did? Then
I
someone
think
must have recommended you to me then. Uh,
that's possible. Since I was working at Marvel and DC, it's probably up your alley because that's kind of what you were looking for. And I drew in a more traditional style, I would say,
uh-huh.
like the 80s and 90s styles. So it was a good fit.
It was, it still is for that matter.
Yes. And, we took a break and then I came back and started doing Flare and then Black Enchantress.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm working on things like that.
Right, we're going to get into the long delayed whatever happened to Lady Arcane storyline here,
Yeah,
which
I
was
have 3 pages in and I don't know what's going on next, but
well, you did the intro where she's walking through the town, not dressed in much of anything, and gets
no.
accosted by a couple of ruffians and
Yeah.
teaches them a lesson. And then we're going to cut to her husband, right? Where the hell is she? Right? And then we'll cut back to her. Anyway, people will have to wait for the whole story. I have it sort of in mind, but I wanted to digress and put you onto anyway, we'll get to it. So, and soon. So that's cool. Um, when you started working on Flair, you were in fact the regular artist on the Flair book. You did a whole bunch of issues uh,
Yeah, I would say
all in a
that's
row.
true. The
Yeah.
numbering's changed at one point, but I was still the main artist, I think.
Yes, you were. Well, we started with a number one, like volume three, number one, and I've never
Was
been
it a
happy.
zero?
I've never been happy with that restarting. So when we got to issue 25, that seemed like a good point to just revert to the actual numbering. So it went like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25. And
Yeah,
from
I
there,
think it may have gone to six.
yeah. Well,
And then
25
25.
was number six. Both of those numbers were
Oh,
off.
I get,
Yeah. So of that sequence, let me go back again. When you were working with Marvel and DC, what was your favorite thing to work on back then?
well, I like the teen books. So I did Justice League, which I really liked. I did Titans a little bit, and I did the Avengers. And those are my favorite teen. Oh, I even did Fantastic Four, one part of an issue there. So I kind of like teen books. Uh, I did like when I did Silver Sable, actually made Flair look like Silver Sable, kind of the
Oh,
same because they're both Nordic.
yes.
Uh,
Yes.
she was from Europe, someplace, so I kind of had a parallel there. I did Silver Sable for a pretty long time, a
So
year and a half.
Flair and Silver Sable might be cousins or something.
Yes, yes, that's what I was kind of thinking when I did it. So I bet I did Flair after I finished Silver Sable.
I'm sure you did.
And I did jump and did like Dark Horse. I did Lost in Space and Indiana Jones and Barbed Wire. And then I think I just jumped around to other companies once in a while. That's the way. And I remember Malibu obviously was a long, long time with Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Um,
Uh, and then some of them are obscure that I did.
I
Yeah.
was the question I was going to get to before I decided we should backtrack and talk about your favorites was of those issues of Flair that you did, is there any one in particular that sticks out in your mind that you really liked doing?
Oh, I like the one with Thanksgiving, which I drew
Oh, the
Nora
Thanksgiving dinner
Rockwell, and
at the
she went.
Madison House.
Yeah, she went to her boyfriend's house and his family, and talked to the little girl. And I thought that was a nice story. And then I remember I just liked the origin we did early on too. It's 2 pages, but really, it hits it all. I
That
like,
that little thing that we did for in the first issue that you did with her backstory. Is
yeah,
that the one you're talking about? Yeah.
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 And she had a leather jacket then.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of fun to draw too. I just thought it kind of told everything. I also kind of liked the one with
Whipperette?
Whipperette, and she was like, it was the second issue, I think.
Yes, that was the second issue you did.
And they were building a house or something, and there was a lot of little things where you have to draw stairs and stuff. But I think I did it right.
Oh, you did a wonderful job on that. In fact,
Yeah.
we're going to be having a role-playing game supplement coming up soon that features Champions headquarters, right?
Ah,
And that design of the headquarters is going to be based entirely on what you drew for
oh,
that
oh,
issue.
cool.
So we'll give you a credit for it. You
Oh,
know,
that's nice to me.
yeah. So it was a nice design. I remember all I really described to you was there need to be buildings up on the cliff and then a sort of a glass wall coming down the cliffside with a big
Right.
C for the champions. Uh,
Sure.
yeah, and you took that and ran with it. Did a great
Yeah.
job. Yeah,
Yeah, that was fun. And we got to draw normal people and stuff along with the superheroes. So it was kind of fun.
yeah. Flair has a household staff. She needs people to take care of the building, to cook, right, to
That's
take
one
care of the
reason
vehicles.
I like Black Enchantress because she had her dad, her mother, the butler, I will call him,
The
uh,
butler slash assassin.
assassin. So she had, a group with her, and then, friends at the sorority and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
That was fun to draw because they're drawing normal people. Okay, some were vampires, but still.
Okay. All right. Let's segue into another topic. You're talking about your history in comic books. How would you describe, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Well, actually, I do mean to put you on the spot. How would you describe the state of the comic book industry today?
Well, it's a little shaky. If, in general, publishing, including magazines and newspapers, are not doing well. Comics are holding up a little better than that, and manga a little better than comics. So it's not the strongest market it's ever been. Also, because a lot of colleges make money teaching kids to draw on computers, a lot of the art has gotten much simpler and
Mhm.
cartoony. And they often use the same background patterns because, Google has
Easy.
a background pattern. So I don't know if they're always learning as much. I will say this: I don't blame them because sometimes the rates have gone down, and being able to draw it fast, you probably can draw 2 or 3 pages a day, and you're inking it yourself. What I do find is the inking isn't as good as an inker, or
Yeah.
even me inking myself.
So
It,
basically, everyone is graduating from the Vince Colletta School of Inking.
well, I don't want to. Coletta did some art that was good. I don't want to.
Well, Vince was a good artist, but he had the time pressures, and
Yeah,
Stan wanted stuff done quickly, so Vince cut corners. He
yes,
was
and
supposed to do that.
yes, he erased too much,
Uh-huh.
and that's bad. But at this point, gee, it's really hard to find a lot of pencilers who get inkers anymore because the publishers kind of frown on it. This way they don't have to mail anything to anybody. Everything's set with a computer scanner and blue lines and stuff like that. I can't even remember. I think the last thing I did, Protectors Ink at Image, I think that had me inking half of it and Andrew Pepoy inking another half. So it's hard to find. Inking that's a great job, and they're starving people for it.
Oh yeah. From my own perspective, I have had stuff inked by people, but just my personal preference is to have the artwork done entirely by the one artist. So what we end up with is his interpretation of whatever the
Sure.
thing is.
And over time, I've learned better to ink myself. Actually, one of the first jobs I did at DC, now that I think of it, after the 2 Star Trek fill-ins, I did something called Gamma Rotters. Elliot Megan edited it. And it was based on a Dungeons and Dragon game with giant kangaroos and apes and stuff. But I did one issue, and then he asked me to finish it off. But he said, why don't you ink it yourself? And by inking myself, I saw all the penciling mistakes I was making. Like heads too big, expression too big, things like that. And I fixed a lot of stuff, and that really taught me a great deal.
Ted's too big. One of Derek Gross's artistic flaws that he could never fix was
Yes.
he always drew heads too big. Yeah.
Well, because a lot of times when you're starting, the expression is the most important thing. So you draw the expression
Yeah.
as opposed to the skeleton of the skull,
Mm-hmm.
which you sort of need to have. So I became a much better artist after that, and I always appreciate Elliot for
I
thinking that.
have I happen to have here.
Oh, that's actually the headquarters.
Yes, it is.
Her boyfriend there.
With her boyfriend, bringing the boyfriend
Yeah.
into headquarters. I pulled out these issues, figuring that you might want to comment on them. Right, it's up on the cliff there. Right, the very next panel. Right, we get a view. Very nicely done.
Oh yeah, you can see.
Gordon Purcell artwork here.
I can show you this. I brought these in case people want to know what we do. So for a long time, was just a penciler. So I just brought a pencil job, and this is Ben 10, the cartoon from.
Oh, that's nice.
And so here I'm penciling it. I'm putting it in completely because I didn't know who was going to ink it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to base it on their character designs, which does sometimes, limits you a little bit, but also forces you. It's a good discipline to learn other styles. And that I did that a few times with Ben 10 and Sonic the Hedgehog and a few other things. Here's from that first Flare thing, I think. And this is me inking myself.
Oh yeah, that's the Flare
Yeah.
origin sequence. Like that's her evil brother Thomas there up in the thing, finding
Yep.
him and
Yeah, to
that
see a nice shot of her at the
no
end.
Philip, her evil brother Philip. And that panel over there, the third panel is her brother Thomas.
Yep. This is her with her cape.
Yeah. Well, that's Lady Arcane, isn't it?
Oh, yes, you're right.
Which is a reference to the
This her?
stories that we'll be working on. That's that's when she disappeared, right? She went with her grandpa into other dimensions and never came back.
Yep. Here she is with the cape.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we're drawing, I think. The next thing I draw for you.
Okay, and here is that double page spread.
Oh, yes.
They're working
Things
on,
like
right? You
stairs.
got double levels going on in there. That is great layout, I got to tell you.
Yeah, and stairs are hard to draw. I actually there's a book that teaches you how to get the angles right.
Uh-huh.
So I've learned from that.
Split level, lots of things going on in that panel. You got people up there at the top, right, discussing
Yeah.
stuff. You
So you
got
have someplace
you
to
got
talk.
a worker down there on the stairs actually working on something. Where is he? He's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
A black enchantress coming into the room, Flair talking with the guy she's thinking of hiring as her cook, right? All kinds of stuff going on that page.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very nice. So, okay, all righty. Now, what are you working on besides the stuff you're working on for me these days? Oh, hold on. You were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yes. And Jeopardy.
Tell us about that, please.
They both had auditions in Minneapolis, so that's why I did it. So I went to the one for Millionaire, which I liked a lot. I actually auditioned for it once in Chicago, my wife and I, and we made it, but they never called.
Oh,
So I went to the one in here in a suburb, and the guy liked me, and I think it's because I drew comic books, and I think he would like having people with unusual stories in some ways, and different backgrounds, because so many of them are just I don't know, a nurse or teacher or something like that. So I flew out to New York with my wife, did the show, won 50 grand. This is on the daytime version, which is harder to win. So I was the high winner of that day. They filmed like 5 of them a day. It was with Meredith Vieira. And then we went ate something, I think, and then we went to David Letterman's taping.
You drew a picture of Meredith Vieira.
Yeah, where she was shooting off money or something. And they kept it in their office for a very long time. And they even called me a couple times to be a friend, telephone friend.
Hmm.
So I felt very connected to that. 2 years goes by, so I did Jeopardy, tried out for Jeopardy, and then 2 years went by. So I stopped watching Jeopardy. I just figured, nothing happened. They called, needed me right away. I hadn't watched it in a long time. Went out there, and I and a woman were the first show that they taped against a guy who was a three-time winner. And the two of us kept clicking in too early the first to the commercial. So we were pretty far behind. I did end up with some money, but it wasn't that much. He was a three-time winner, so.
Yeah, what can you do?
But it was fun because that was with Alex Trebek, actually. And
Yeah,
so we
with
watched
or
him
without mustache.
without, I think. Yeah, without. It's all uh, intense, especially if you do it the first thing in the morning. You're not used to doing it. You're not used to thinking because it was really early there. But it was fun, and it was a good adventure. And you get enough money in third place to pay for the hotel and the plane.
Okay.
The,
All right. Let's move on to that. What are you working on these days besides the stuff you're working on with me?
well, it's not quite as much. My wife died last year, so I have to take care of my son who's handicapped. So I have to do a little bit more around the house than I used to. But besides the stuff with you, I've done a lot of cards for Dynamite. I think the last ones were Vampirilla and Red Sonja and things like that. Somebody with a long jaw. I don't remember Kiss. Then I did a couple stories for American mythology. So I did oh Stargate Atlantis, which had the earlier version of Jason Momoa in it.
Hmm.
Then I did Laurel and Hardy, and that won't get published. And I did uh, La Rosa Blanca, which is kind of a Wild West character. That's coming out this summer, I guess. And I did a horror story and stuff like that. Seems like I do little jobs here and there. Um, I remember doing Dyna Saucers. I don't remember what that company was called anymore, but uh, whatever comes up. It's just some of it is once you get older, they would rather go with younger people they know. Most of the editors I've been with the exception of you, I have retired already, you know, or passed away.
Yeah,
So there is that.
there is
So
that. Yeah, it's true.
or they moved on to other jobs, of course. One of my favorite Star Trek editors went on to be work for Pocket Books, for example, and the other favorite Star Trek editor is a teacher.
Hmm,
So
cool.
you never know. So although I'm always open for more work, uh, you know, because I'll make it work. I'll figure it out. It's just
Yeah,
right
you've
now.
never had any trouble figuring out staging of the artwork, carrying the plot. So I we're getting we're getting short on time.
Okay.
Is there any last thing you want to say?
Well, I love comics. You're only limited by how good the art is, how good the script is, how good the coloring is. So it should be a vital component of entertainment. Also, it's a lot less expensive than making a movie or a TV show or a play.
Absolutely. For intellectual properties, comic books are the way to go to, mark your claim to them.
Yes, and so those are all real big pluses. I do hope that it survives the publishing downturn, but it doesn't seem like electronic comics are doing that well, and comics are still kind of floating about the same level that they were. So I'm hoping for the best.
So am I. So am I.
Hoping some of these younger talents actually really, and there are younger people who are doing really good work. I think of Betsy Clunan, for example. I think he does really good work, and all of Otto Schmidt. There are good younger artists out there. So let's hope they develop and stick with it.
Let's hope they get a fan following, because that's the important thing. You know, if you don't have fan followings for the characters or the creators,
Yes, and I will
nobody's going to buy
say
the books.
the people who sold comics in the '90s, and I am one of those, but a lot of those people really have big fan followings now, and they go to conventions a lot and get sketches and signings and stuff like that. And they can do that's the dog.
So anyway, thank you so much for being on this very first Heroic Voice. Uh, what we'll do is, once this thing is cleaned up and processed and we'll give you the link or give you an actual copy of it so you can post it to your fan sites. And first of many I hope to come. Can I
Good.
invite you back sometime later, maybe at a time when we're ready to push the Black Enchantress storyline?
Is that the one with Flair appearing in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
All righty. Okay. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you. Bye, Dennis.
Bye-bye.